Okay, today we are taking notes on intros to ecosystems. So first of all, ecosystems contain biotic and abiotic factors. And these are new terms, so let's go ahead and define them. Biotic, bio means living, so these are the living parts of the ecosystem. So let's do some examples. For example, a living portion of an ecosystem could be something like a tree or animals, humans, bacteria, all of the plants. Anything that's living, anything that's made of cells, those are all going to be biotic factors. The abiotic factors, those are going to be the non-living parts of the ecosystem. So for example, these are going to be things like rocks, water, wind, temperature, these are all things that the living things might interact with, but they're non-living. So they're part of the ecosystem. They're going to impact the living things. The living things might impact the abiotic factors, but these are non-living. So when we're talking about ecosystems and we're talking about those biotic factors, we often make something called a food chain. And a food chain is a way to show how food or how matter and energy move through an ecosystem. So there are 4 parts of this food chain that we're going to talk about. And so I'm actually going to start building from the top just to make it fit in my notebook. So the first part is going to be a box about this big. And then I'm going to have an arrow going to that box and another box below it. So we're just setting this up first. Another arrow. And these boxes are this size so that I can write in them, not because the size is actually super important. Another arrow, and then this box can be a little bit shorter because the word is shorter. All right, so at the very bottom of a food chain, we're going to have our producers, or our plants. These are called autotrophs. And autotrophs are things that make their own food. They are eaten by primary consumers. And a way of abbreviating primary is to write a little 1 and then this like degree-ish symbol. That means primary, and these are consumers. So consumers, they don't make their own food, they have to eat food, and the thing that they're eating are the plants. Primary consumers are eaten by secondary consumers. Which are eaten by tertiary consumers. And so all of these things that are consumers, they are all heterotrophs. Which means that they are going to be eating food. Now, these levels here are called trophic levels. So I'm going to turn this sideways in order to label that. These are the trophic levels. Trophic, because we're talking about autotrophs and heterotrophs. So they're the levels of consumption. Now, in a food chain, there's only one species at each level. And that's going to be really important. So in a food chain, and these arrows go from the food to the thing eating the food. So the direction of this arrow always goes towards the thing that is doing the consuming. So I've written that all in caps because that's really important. It's showing the way that the matter and the energy is moving. So the matter and energy is moving from the producers into the consumers, from the primary consumers into the secondary consumers. So that's what that direction is showing. Now, we also have in ecosystems, instead of a food chain, you might be familiar with a food web. And a food web is all of the food chains in an ecosystem. So when we're making a food web, it often gets pretty messy pretty quickly. I'm just going to draw a basic one. So at the bottom of my food web, I'm going to put algae. And algae are single-celled plants. They make their own food. They're autotrophs. And now algae are eaten by freshwater shrimp. So freshwater shrimp are primary consumers because they are eating the producer, which is the algae. Now, freshwater shrimp are eaten by crayfish. And crayfish are eaten by raccoons. Raccoons basically eat everything. Now shrimp, they're also eaten by fish. So this is one food chain. But another food chain might look like this. It might go algae, freshwater shrimp. Freshwater shrimp are eaten by fish. And fish are eaten by herons. Herons are birds, like a blue heron you might see around here. So this is a food web because it's showing multiple food chains. Now, this is not a complete food web because there are a lot more food chains that we could put in here. There are other things that eat crayfish. There are other things that eat fish. There are other things that eat algae, but I don't have time for all that. So a couple of questions for you to see if you can put all of this together. What trophic level are my raccoons in? Hopefully you said tertiary consumers. What trophic level are my fish in? Fish are secondary consumers, which means that my freshwater shrimp then are primary consumers. All of these things are consumers. They're all eating something, which means that they are heterotrophs. Algae is a producer, therefore it is an autotroph. And that is all for now. So remember, arrows go from the thing being eaten into the mouth of the thing doing the eating.